another Smiling Joe video. The dumbest of the series, so I was kind of premature in calling his last video fucking dumb or whatever. Because this one's really fucking dumb. Really, it's just fucking dumb. You don't get, this is just as dumb can be.
The most popular temple, the most popular place of pilgrimage in the ancient Greek world was the Oracle of Apollo at Delphi in the north of Greece.
Wait a minute, who the fuck could care less? Oh yeah, that's right, I couldn't. I'll move up a little, see if we get to some action here.
Translates to know thyself. The second one is Medin Agan, which translates to nothing in excess.
Yeah. You know, whatever. Isn't this just too simplistic? I mean, know thyself could be translated to me, know thy psychology, know the catches, you know, the bigotries, the nonsense that exists inside of us all. That attempts to use our brain, okay, to satisfy it. And that's all you're doing. You're just rationalizing an excuse to be a selfish prick.
Probably, in my opinion, the two wisest bits of advice ever placed in the mouth of an invented God.
Yeah, well, whatever. There's really no point. I mean, the wisest, yeah, right, they don't mean anything. Know thyself, yeah, water is, like, flowy.
It's just basic common sense. And, of course, you put it in the mouth of a God, and suddenly it takes on an aura of eternal truth and numinescence, I suppose, that adds that little bit of extra oomph.
Oh yeah, how do you know? Were you there then? I don't know, nobody thinks know thyself came out of a god's mouth anymore. So really, this whole drivel, this whole first minute and a half is useless nonsense. Thank you very much.
To what is ultimately just common sense. Know thyself is the most interesting one, at least from the point of view of antinatalism, because it says, know what you are, and most importantly, know what you are not. And you are most certainly not a god. Now, one of the interesting things that I found...
Yeah, well, whatever. Again, yeah, well, go ahead. I mean, you're going to say something, like something that a rational person can engage in a conversation with, not this poetry.
About the antinatalist argument is, it puts human beings, whether they want to be or not, in the position of being gods.
Okay, of being gods, right? So when you use the phrase playing God, you're really saying, I think you are a god. There, right? Nice paraphrase. So again, you're just a liar and a slanderer, and you'd have no courage, and you're gutless. You've made 20-some videos now. You haven't responded to a single counter argument made to your drivel. This is just obnoxious. Religion, that's what this shit is. You might as well just be wearing a funny hat, silly man.
Whether or not we want to be in that situation, we're cast in the role of godlike beings in total and complete control.
Yeah, no one's making that argument. Total and complete control. The fact is, though, we're driving, right? You don't say when somebody's driving their car, they're in total and complete control. No, but they are now in control. They will navigate the vehicle through the obstacles, and largely responsibility falls on them. Gee. See, I mean, you just can't help but straw man every single argument with your exaggerations and your excesses. You have to cheat the argument because you can't make an argument.
Over potentials, our potential progeny, the ones that haven't actually appeared yet.
Yeah, right. That's called the future, right? And there's some doubt, I guess. You know, there's some reasonable doubt about the existence of the future.
Even though we are not gods. Now that's rather bizarre, but that's what happens. That's the way the argument is framed.
No, it isn't. It's not framed by anybody that way. You haven't quoted anybody framing the argument that way, saying that explicitly, saying you have godlike judgment or godlike capacity. I bet you don't smell like a fucking god, you stupid... Well, go ahead. Continue, asshole.
But the ironical thing is, even though we are not gods and we are expected in that dynamic to act as though we are gods,
i.e., take responsibility when you're driving the bus. That's right. Oh, yes, be responsible when you've got somebody else's welfare, okay, in your vehicle. Oh, yeah, what a horrid, oppressive, nonsensical notion that people who are influencing the destiny of other people should take that seriously and be responsible and accountable. Oh, what hideous, disgusting, horrid words. Accountability and responsibility. Oh, fuck. Run away and such.
show a godlike responsibility for whatever happens to a potential being.
Again, godlike. No, we're just saying take any form of responsibility and it would make people happy. Any form of responsibility for the harm you impose in the world would be a good thing.
Relationship with the potentials takes on something of a godlike quality, but this time we're not gods. We owe them their right to non-existence. What do they owe us?
Yes, somehow that came out of somewhere. Like somehow, it's almost like, yes, parents owe children and children owe parents. And, dogs owe owners and owners owe dogs. No, there's nothing reciprocal in the world. Okay, if you impose life on somebody, they don't owe you anything. Okay, they didn't cause anything. They didn't act. You did. You. Jesus. See, he's always trying to evade responsibility and accountability. He wants somebody else to pay him back for his trespass. I mean, it's just such bullshit. You rape somebody, it's not like they're owed something. It's like, no, the obligation was not to cause the harm in the first place, shithead. You can't pay back.
Do they owe us anything? If we're to accept them as entities, then presumably they have certain characteristics.
If we're going to, presume them to be entities, again, like the future's in doubt, and like you could just sit there and poison the Great Lakes tomorrow and just make the argument that tomorrow isn't here, the day after tomorrow, so therefore I haven't committed a crime, because no one drank the water yet. I mean, it's just a stupid and idiotic and immature, childish argument.
If we owe them something, then there is a moral relationship between the two entities. Either morals are going to be reciprocal or they ain't morals.
Well, no one's even using the word morality, but again, why would morality have to be reciprocal? I don't have any... There's no reciprocity because your functions are different. Your behavior is different. If you impose life on me, I'm obligated to impose life on you. No, it doesn't work that way, shithead. There's no reciprocity in kind.
So if we've already established that...
I mean, if you impose life on me, then I'm entitled to impose death on you, might be the more rational exchange rate. I should give you what you don't want. You give me what I don't want, I should give you what you don't want.
I owe them, or we owe them something, i.e. their right to remain non-existent, to remain potential and not real. Presumably they owe us something in return.
Well, again, presumably based on what logic? What logic obligates somebody to have any association with you whatsoever? Why should anyone have to have an obligation? You impose on them, you trespass, and somehow they have to have a relationship with you? This sounds like Muslim logic. Rape the woman and then marry her. That's your penalty for rape.
Or at least we have rights as well. Maybe they actually owe us simply the obligation of respecting our rights as we have the obligation to respect theirs.
Well, you're saying that, okay, that it's a disrespect of your rights if somebody obliges you to be careful and cautious and responsible. Because that's all the argument's about, right? I mean, the argument is make a rational case for your imposition. Okay, write up a paragraph of rational jargon saying why it's necessary for you to do this thing, and then maybe you have a right. But you're not doing that. You're just saying, I'm a selfish fuck, I'm going to do whatever I want. That's all you're saying.
That's kind of modern rights theory. What do they owe us? What rights do we have vis-a-vis the potentials?
Well, again, it's not vis-a-vis the potentials. It's vis-a-vis your statement that somehow there's a right that you're given by nature, that nature bestows rights. Okay, so there, try to make that argument. Try to explain how the DNA molecule is qualified, okay, to decide who's got the loaded gun, so to speak.
It's an interesting thought when you consider the fact that we're not gods, they're not gods, and yet each one is expected to treat the other one as a god.
Treat them as a god? Again, how is that? That doesn't even make any logical sense. How are you treating the future like a god, and how is the future have some obligation to treat you as a god? That doesn't make any sense. It's just nonsense. So yeah, you just use the words and, pretend that it all makes sense, but it doesn't make any sense at all. That was just absolute drivel.
We owe them their nothingness.
Yeah, you owe them an excuse if you're going to fuck with them, all right? If you're going to, step up to the plate and play with their reality, you have an obligation to explain why you have some sort of right to do that, why you have some sort of necessity to do that, why there is some imperative, okay? Some reason, okay? Besides, you're just a selfish fuck.
Do they owe us respect for our existence?
No one's challenging. The future's not challenging your existence, okay? So again, you've another straw man argument. Pretend that the future's saying you have to die. They're not saying that, shithead.
How much of our existence is based upon procreation? Well,
look at this face he makes. Okay, so this is where the pseudoscience will come flowing out, right? So all the jackasses who comment positively on this video, let's just keep track how much pseudoscience comes out of this turd's mouth that you assholes are defending.
How much of our existence is based upon reproduction? All you have to do is look at, say, the female body, and you'll see what a massive percent.
Well, whatever, massive percentage. Well, again, you got real specific there. As a percentage of organs, I guess, and weight, you're going to talk maybe, okay, 10-15%. So you're not making much of an argument there. But the truth is, I don't think anybody's going to concede that a primary biological function is reproduction. Next to consumption and surviving, the gauntlet of beasties, that's the game, is reproduction. That's the whole argument the antinatalists are making, is that we are basically caught up in a cycle of pointless and futile reproduction. So again, you can't even stay on the subject.
Of our basic biology is built towards nothing but reproduction.
Well, again, it's not nothing but, because obviously you have to survive long enough to do the reproduction. Clever boy.
So we have to forego that aspect of ourselves. We have to overcome our essential nature.
Our essential nature. So again, let's not talk about the huge cavern of distance that now has been created through simple little thin layers of latex, okay, between a biological need and the outcome. We have the simple little latex layer now, so the outcome doesn't have to have anything to do with satisfying the need. The biological need can be satisfied without impaling the future on your penis.
We have to overcome our desire, our need to procreate, etc.
Okay, need to procreate, etc. So there, you just threw this little fluffy line out there, like that need to procreate thing is a reality, or that it's a reality at anything else but extinction levels. Okay, the average person apparently doesn't have a need to procreate at sufficient levels to maintain human existence. Okay, the top 80% of procreators, all right, aren't having sufficient children to maintain the future. That's the truth of it, okay? It's extinction um, all the way down. All right, so the 80% have drawn the conclusion that they don't need to procreate sufficiently to maintain human existence. So they are procreating at antinatalist levels. Einstein. So again, when you say we need or we, you don't mean we. You mean you, shithead. Okay? You don't mean we need. You don't mean humans need, because it's been demonstrated that they don't need, shithead. You're in a decided minority if you think people need to procreate at more than 2.24 children per couple.
Now that's fine, but if that's what is expected of us from these potentials, we are being asked to overcome what we are.
Well, again, like I said, no, you're not being asked to do anything. What you're being asked to do is take responsibility for the assholes having more than 3 kids each, for each couple. That's all. Take responsibility for their behavior. Modify their behavior. You're the huge majority. Tell them they can't keep playing that game. Quit subsidizing their procreation. All right? That's all. You can't do that. You can't stop subsidizing. There's a biological imperative to subsidize. Is that what you're going to... The DNA says I have to subsidize. If I don't subsidize, I'm going to have a horrible pain. I'm going to suffer insufferable suffering if I don't subsidize childbirthing. Oh, please.
Should I then say that it's reasonable?
No, you should read a damn science book, because apparently you don't understand the difference between the function of sex and the function of reproduction, because they are psychologically distinctly different.
For me to expect these potentials to overcome what they are?
Well, again, the potentials, what they are, huh? They are what our cultures will make them. We change the culture, we change who they will or be. Okay, that's a simple truth. They don't have to be assholes like you. They don't have to be indoctrinated pop culturist religious kooks like you. They could be rational individuals who don't need to play silly games.
I.e., they are beings that are living in some sort of...
i.e., they're not living anywhere, asshole. So again, that's called a straw man. Okay, that's called a canard. That's called a lie. That's called a slander. No one's arguing they're living somewhere.
Paradise, I suppose.
Yeah, well again, paradise is implying that they had some need and it got satisfied, like somebody brought them a coconut drink because they were thirsty. Well, there ain't no paradise. Okay, what they are is not. And you're saying I'm going to make them un-not. Okay, and we're just saying to you, well, why, do you have a fucking reason to do that?
A paradise of a vacuum. Paradise in a vacuum. Am I...
Well, yeah, a vacuum that's at least void, right? That's a fail-safe vacuum. You could say that, and that would be a little bit fair, right? It's the fail-safe vacuum. That's right. But that's what it is, shithead. And you're saying, I'm going to break the glass. I'm going to smash the bulb of fail-safeness, and I'm going to expose it to something other than safe.
Within my rights to expect them to overcome their fundamental nature and step out into the phenomenal world with all its problems. After all...
Yeah, well, whatever. You have the right to procreate, to sit there and say, I'm going to impose risks. That's all you're just, again, so it's just another cheap excuse that somehow they have an obligation to respect your right to force something into a mediocre existence. They are worse. Mediocre are worse. There's very few splendid, exemplary, conscious lives.
I have to live in this phenomenal world. And
You don't first have to. In the second case, yeah, that'd be no reason. The fact that something happens to you doesn't mean you impose it on somebody else. That's again infantile logic, because you got unlucky, or because you were imposed on you an unfairness, that somehow you have a right now to impose unfairness onto somebody else. I mean, because somebody doesn't respect you, that means somebody rapes you, you can go out and rape somebody else? Is that what you're saying? Sounds like that's what you're saying.
And I'm the one that's being asked to forgo what I am in order to stop this.
To forgo what you are. Well, that's just, can't everybody just say that? Everybody just turn every vice they have, every criminal notion, every selfish impulse, and just call it, veil it in some sort of sacred natural duty.
A vicious cycle of desire and addiction and
yeah, well, addiction. You don't want to deal with those words, but they're the reality, shithead. That's the science part again.
And attrition and this sort of thing. It all seems to be fully on our shoulders, and there's no.
Well, you're informed, okay? You have power and you're informed. You know the risks, you know basically the outline of the game, that some of this stuff you can't protect against, that there's all kinds of little jack-in-the-boxes that are going to pop up in the highway and they can flip the bus over at any time. You have knowledge of this truth, and so the obligation, yes, is on you to explain why you're going to let the little kids on the bus.
Concomitant need for these potentials to respect our rights and our right to be exactly what we are.
Well, we are. So again, we. Who is the we you're speaking about? You're speaking about the most ignorant minority on planet Earth, okay? Find the dumbest 15% of the human race, and you're defending their perspective, their needs, their desires, their ambitions, their qualifications. Their behavior is the behavior you're endorsing. The behavior of the 85% who isn't replicating at a sufficient level to maintain human existence, that is the enemy, okay? And you're defending the behavior of the dumbest 15%. Yeah. Bravo. That's the we you're speaking from. That's the we you're defending.
I'm expected to abandon what I am, or at least a large chunk of what I am.
Again, you're not expected to abandon it, okay? You're expected to respect what you're getting yourself into. And I would say it's still wrong to impose life on another generation. But if you all just have one kid, or you even just have two, and no more than two, just through attrition, you will go extinct. So again, we're just saying 2 kids. You can't do that even. But there's a lot of people who won't have any. So the not any's will make 2 kids still extinction, an extinction rate of replication. So we're denying you the right to have more than 2 kids. That's the horror they're imposing, the future's imposing on you, the request they're making. So again, slander the argument, slander the truth, because that's all you can do is lie.
Do you think that it's legitimate for me to expect the same thing of the potentials?
Like I said, I don't think it's legitimate for you to expect anything from anything else, especially something you're imposing on. Yeah, no, I don't think you have any rights as a rapist. None. No rights. You have no rights as a rapist. None.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, get what you deserve. Get exactly what you deserve. What you have earned. be treated with the same obnoxious arrogance. Have obnoxious arrogance fucking shove its dick up your ass. Asshole. So anyway. So let's read a couple of these comments. It's all rosebushy again. I mean, it's the same old, tired, silly people. All propagandists. Rosebushy, the guy who argues with kittens. The argument from kitten. Look, kitten. There, I win the argument. It's just disgusting. Ascribing rights to something or someone that doesn't exist sounds a little on the crazier end of, well, look, I mean, Jesus, is it really crazy? So in all the environmental policies are all crazy because they're protecting the environment for the future? Is that what you're saying, shit for brains? Man, these people are dumb. If it were possible to respect a potential person's right not to exist, it is equally valid to respect their right to exist. Well, again, you can't, the bottom line is that's like arguing that because somebody wants to have a chocolate ice cream cone, I will subject the other person to rape. So yeah, I will allow a person to be raped so somebody else can get what they want, which is an ice cream cone. Sorry, that just doesn't make any sense. It's not good enough. The harm is what hasn't been defended because you can't produce anything to defend against the statement that the harm has more value. So again, just not on the subject. I expect a greater part of humanity in maintaining and defending their lives, even through suffering, are glad they are given life. Well, obviously they're not glad enough. They're not doing their godly responsibilities because they're not natally in a sufficient level to maintain human existence, retard. So again, the majority is not on your side in this argument. As Leonard Cohen said, dance me to the children who are asking to be born. I don't even know what that means. Dance me to the children who are, obviously he was a fucking child molester, right? This is beautiful. I have always point blank refused to follow the ANs down their garden path into La La Land. Yeah, well, right. You're making the argument from Cute Kitten, and you haven't made a rational argument, Rose Bushy. You're a propagandist and you're a pathetic nerd, is what you are. But you've proven that even if you do so, and you follow them all the way down to the heart of their insanity, their philosophy still doesn't make sense. Well, I'm sorry. What didn't make sense was you can't make sense out of lies, and his fundamental argument is the future doesn't exist. So anyway, this series is a work of beauty. Yeah, right. It's a work of slander. So of course you like it because you're a coward, a disgusting, despicable coward. If you grant the existence of potentials, they imply a relationship between them and the living people, which I do not do, but the anti-nihilist argument does. Grant and imply the relationship between them and living people. The point is there's a decision that will be made by us. They either will exist or will not exist, and we can figure out that has certain probable outcomes. Oh, this is just too complicated. This is nuclear science or something. This is the fucking God particle or something. It's just recognizing that you have an impact on the future. Oh, wow, that's just such a bizarre concept. I'm influencing the future. No, that's just incredibly amazing. I'd like to explore the nature of that relationship, but whatever, waste your time. In order to do that, I have to define what we are comparing. If I'm going to accept the definition of potential's fundamental nature, well, look, yeah, that's right. The suffering of the people in the past when they were alive and they were in the present was real. The suffering of the people in the future when they're in the present, it's going to be real. The suffering of us in the present is real. Is that too complicated for you, that all those sufferings are equal to each other when they are in the present? You can't figure that out? I'd like to have mine defined as well. What are my rights, obligations vis-a-vis its nature? Well, again, the DNA says so. This is all you got for an excuse. The DNA told me I could. You know, I mean, it's a childish. It's a reasonable request, but don't expect a sensible answer. Possibly, though, you may get a self-contradictory one. Well, I don't even, like, again, I don't really have a hard time distinguishing and recognizing the fact that future individuals will have real experiences just as real as past individuals. So again, I don't, unless you have a counter argument to that, why would this be a hard question to deal with? I suppose someone said, I mean, why would their rights of be any different than rights of people living right now? You're going to rape the future. It's not any different than raping the present. Duh. Suppose someone said, except the future is bigger than the present, which is part of the implication here, that the future crimes you commit have expanding permutations, potential, because there's a lot of presence in the future. There's lots and lots and lots of presence, you know, like being present, being alive, moments in the future. Okay, there aren't any in the past. Okay, they're all over, and there's one right now. But I mean, there's a ton of them in the future. So if you fuck with the future, you got to be really damn careful because there's a lot of people you're fucking with. So anyway. Suppose someone said, I don't care what happens to the world after I'm dead because that won't matter to me. And so it takes actions at odds with the long-term health of the planet. No crop management other than blah, 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 blah. I can't think of a way to object to a lot of morally suspect behavior without considering... well, again, this is just that obvious. I mean, how can these assholes not understand this? So let's see what idiot's response is. So this is, I can't think about them as real people. Okay, fair enough. Let's go with that for comparison purposes. To be a potential, there has to be a chance of such an entity becoming an actual. Well, that's the whole point is people are going to decide whether it's going to be an actual or not. That's right, you're moving things from categories. Possible to actual, to will be. From maybe to from not, won't happen, to will happen. You're moving things from one category to another category. It's not complicated. One day I will cease to be actual. When will a potential cease to be a potential? Well, again, it's the potential is your interjection of a word, okay? The only potential is in the outcomes and what the probabilistic outcomes will be if you choose to expose it to the risk. Okay, but there's no potential once you've changed its category status from isn't to will be. Even if the human race extinguishes itself voluntarily, one could say that the potential is still there. Well, that doesn't make any sense, okay? If we're exterminated, is the potential for T-Rex still there? I don't really think so. Our potential is somehow infinite, immortal? Well, this is just absolute useless babble. There will be real people who will have real lives, but who don't exist today. Again, so how's it, again, they don't exist today, so somehow they're irrelevant. We should, of course, from a moral perspective, consider the decisions we make today and how they will affect the people of the future. We should consider? No, you have to respect them, okay? I can't throw... Let's say I throw an arrow into space and I know it's going to come back to Earth in 3 days. Okay? It's not that I have to consider that. I have to know that's a fact. Because I'm going to fucking jail if it lands on somebody's head, and you goddamn know it. I mean, if there was a way to fire a gun today and have the bullet hit somebody 3 days from now, you know I'm going to jail if it hits somebody's 5-year-old kid. So, again, this is just nonsense, evasion. What is not a valid thing to do is to pretend that an impossible alternative reality in which those future people have not come into existence is a valid solution to the problems that the future people will face in their actual reality. Well, again, there won't be future people, so you can't argue for the welfare of the future people. It's just stupid. The whole point is preventing the future people, and you can't harm something that doesn't exist. Damn, this is just so simple, and this assholes will not deal with that simple math. An alternative reality in which one does not exist is impossible. Well, I don't. What does that mean? Of course, you know, it's just stupid. The point is the whole question of existence is up to the individuals. Their actions will decide existence or non-existence. Their thought process, their memes. That's what we're asking you to defend. You're defending it with nonsense. Nature told me so. Don't think that the suggestion to kill myself in any way is any way to achieve this. Again, no one's asking you to kill yourself. We're asking people to wear condoms and to have less than 3 kids. all this can possibly achieve is to bring the future reality in which I do not exist somewhat closer. Well, again, whatever. You are not the question, asshole. It's future people that are in the question. But it cannot change the reality of now, and in the now I do exist. What an AN doesn't understand is that from the perspective of a potential future being with problems, an alternative reality in which it doesn't exist is equally impossible. Well, again, I'm not going to argue about potential future beings that don't exist, who won't exist. The only ones that matter are ones that will exist, and the only argument being made here is that we should reduce the number of wills to 0. So to outline a problem for a potential being of the future, well, again, I'm not going to argue about problems. They're not suffering, they're not vulnerable, they don't need anything, they don't need to exist. The only place the need for them to exist is in your psychology. So if your psychology doesn't exist, they don't need to exist. And then the solution of the whatever that means. Let's avoid the creation of the potential future being is logically incoherent. The avoidance of the creation leads to an alternative future. Well, again, so the avoidance of the creation leads to an alternative future. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You either decide to do it or not to do it. You get drunk and you drive, or you don't drink and drive. These aren't complicated decisions, so it's just absolute nonsense to argue that they're somehow fall into different dimensions of blah, blah, blah. It's just bullshit. So again, kitten. He's obsessed with nonsense and drivel. By the time you're done with this series, anti-Nazism will be about as silly as the Flat Earth Society. Well, we'll see who's buried in the ash heap of history. God, jackass. It's got to that stage a long time ago, and this series has killed it, incinerated it, blown ashes in the wind, and buried it wherever bones were left. Well, whatever. You may have your delusions. Okay, but what this has demonstrated is the desperate rationalizations by selfish nihilists. That's all you've demonstrated yourselves to be. You don't give a fuck about the victims of your crimes. You will rationalize any behavior whatsoever. That's why you are meat eaters and sadistic motherfucking cunts. You're takers. That's all you've demonstrated. You've shown us to be takers that will rationalize any behavior. It just doesn't matter. If your guys commit the rape, you're going to defend them because that's the kind of character you guys have. Anti-nihilism about owing something, nor does it follow that if you do owe something that the thing or not thing would owe you something in return. A child does not owe you something in return for not raping her. Well, obviously you don't owe somebody because you didn't commit a crime against them. They don't have to pay you for not committing crimes. Anti-nihilism about doing the action that leads to the least harmful consequences, especially when bringing such harms are unnecessary. Well, that's the thing, Trek. It's the unnecessary word. You have unnecessary. Why open the door to harm for unnecessary pleasures? Because there will be no need for them. The need is in your perception. The need is not in the reality, where the harm is always real. It's always a good thing to rescue somebody in harm's way. It's not a valuable thing to satisfy a need that doesn't need to exist. My only imperative, so says Darwin, is to pass on my DNA. Okay, so here we go. So he's saying Darwin says your only imperative is. So Darwin didn't understand philosophy, or that we had brains, or that we went to school and we were educated. We were supposed to behave just like a monkey. So we were supposed to take our cue from gorillas and behave just like gorillas, because we weren't supposed to know what knowledge was. And we weren't supposed to be responsible for understanding. what knowledge tells us. So we should be having genocide too. So you support genocide, I assume. That's what monkeys do. That's what gorillas do. That's what all the apes do. So we should commit tribal genocide. Is that your asshole statement, shitwit? Why should I deny my only imperative? Well, that's really a hilarious joke. Your only imperative is to have a baby you can molest. That's really got to be the reason, right? What the fuck do you want babies for, shithead? Explain that one to me, please. Explain your imperative. Okay, I can maybe buy the argument that women need to do this natally thing, but you explain to me exactly what you want kids for, shithead. What's in it for me? I know what I lose, what I do, what do I gain? Well, again, it's not my obligation to give you a motherfucking thing. You're the taker, okay? You're taking responsibility, you're taking control, you're imposing your fucking influence, and all people are asking you to do is do that with a little bit of a rational argument, not some asshole argument. I want isn't a good enough excuse to subject somebody else to harm. P.S. Drop the rhetoric, or I lose interest. I don't think you were like that. I don't know what this is. This comment was perfectly fair. Quote, where Darwin says that, and why is it an imperative? Exactly. Darwin understands animals do have sex to pass on their DNA. Sex. They have sex. We are driven to have sex. We are not driven to replicate. So again, that's part of this whole pseudo-science. These guys are just pseudo-scientists. As for rhetoric, it is more of an analogy than for rhetoric's sake. Maybe I should not have said you, as I see how that comes across. Did I not mean it insulting? A child does not owe a pedophile something in return for not raping her, given that the pedophile may like it too. So that's better? Is that better? So he's just trying to explain to this asshole that the victims don't owe the criminals anything. Okay then, we're in the know thyself part of the debate. What is the fundamental nature of a human being? Why don't you ask the more valid question, retard? What is the fundamental nature of intelligence? What does it do? What is its service? Intelligence is a fixer of problems. It's a problem solver. That's the fundamental nature of intelligence. So why don't you deal with what intelligence is, not what our biology is? Because I would think if you could do a little bit of that, you would realize that intelligence is the gold, and your biology is your biology. Alright, enough of this shit. Oh, look at this, another rose bushy though. I'm a bit more cynical than that, I'm afraid, but I'm willing to consider that a person using a certain tactic may be unaware of the fact that they are doing it. Trick, for example, may get so caught up in sincerely writing his mile-long only... Oh, well, whatever. Fuck you, Rose Bushy. You're such a cunt. And I mean that. You are a literal skanky fucking cunt. A badger cunt. You don't even badger that. No, a badger has too much dignity. You're a weasel cunt. Anyway, enough of this shit. But anyway, this is it. There's no arguments here. The future doesn't exist, and kittens are cute. That's the brilliant counter-argument to consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, and addiction. The brilliant counter-argument to replication for the sake of replication, and the argument that all the need for something to exist, for earthlings to exist in the universe, only exists in the perception of human beings. It doesn't exist in reality. There is no harm to be prevented by perpetuating the human race, and therefore there is no value created. It is only, you're only opening the door to the negative sum game. But these people are too stupid to understand that.